Not all superheroes wear capes. Some wear wellies. Wellies.
Hello and welcome to another edition of the James Conway Experience. First and foremost, thank you to everyone who attended the Homesteaders Hoolie. Sorry that the podcasts have slowed down over the last couple of weeks. We were just in preparations for the festival. Everything went very well. Thank you to everyone who was involved in crew and acts and catering and the guests, of course. We are joined this evening by Derek Graham. A couple of weeks ago, we had Tommy Cook on, who was doing a play to raise the issue of what's going on in Palestine now. But there was a lot of feedback from both sides of the aisle. And to be truthful about it, I don't think a lot of us are familiar with what's going on. So Darren, fair play to them, has got in touch with Derek, who's been on the ground over there, who's done serious work in that area of the world, and is going to be able to open all of our eyes to what's going on, what has previously gone on, the reaction on the ground, and a lot of information as well on the immigration, refugee, asylum seeker situation as it comes through Europe. He was an electrician. He was from Ballina, Hill Street in Ballina, and he travelled to Cyprus in 2005, and from then on done a vast array of humanitarian work all across the Mediterranean. So you're very, very welcome, Derek.
Thanks,
we're after having at least half an hour or 40 minutes of a conversation before this started, and it was very, very interesting. I'm going to get into some of the things we talked about earlier. So let's go back to 2005. Yourself and your wife Judy, you head to Cyprus. Jenny, sorry, there we are.
There you go.
Notes are shit. Sorry. You head to Cyprus.
That's the first legal issue there.
That's
covered.
it. Flag that straight away.
No, we were actually living in Cyprus, living and working in Cyprus. I was working as an electrician. Jenny was working in a hotel. In 2008, we seen an ad in the papers to sail a boat to Gaza, with the Free Gaza movement. So I applied and we headed off. I helmed the first boat into Gaza in 41 years. So, and we successfully got in. Now, truly amazing. These people had been locked up for the previous 2 years. And that's exactly what Gaza is. It's a closed prison.
Yeah.
You don't get in, you don't get out. That's it. All of a sudden, these people arrived that didn't come through Israel or Egypt. So this was all of a sudden a new route to them. They were ecstatic about this.
Yeah.
But while we were there, and this would be the reason why I continued on with the work, while we were there, we were brought to Shifa Hospital. And you would know Shifa Hospital now from the news, would say, with the bombing that's been going on around it and its destruction. But we were brought to the prenatal unit. And while we were there, Jimmy, you see child in an incubator, and I asked Jim, what's the story with the child? I was told, okay, he actually needs an operation. And I asked, when was that going to take place? They said, well, they didn't have the medical equipment to do it. So I said, well, what happens next? And they said, well, we apply for an exit visa. And I said, okay, so how long does that take? And they went, well, it's a male. Now, me being naive, I didn't realize what he meant. So I just said, well, okay, what's that mean? And he kind of goes, well, it's a male. All males under the age of 35 are classified as terrorists. Therefore, they don't get exit visas. And I'm kind of looking at him and going, we're looking at a premature child here, not a man. And they went, all males under the age of 35 classified as terrorists. So I'm looking at the child and I'm kind of going, well, what happens then? And he goes, well, realistically, we're just making him as comfortable as we can before he dies. And you go on to the next incubator and you're asking the same questions and you're getting the exact same answers. And the third incubator. By the time I got the third incubator at this stage, and I was near tears, and you're just looking at a line of incubators and you realize that you're actually looking at a line of living coffins.
Yeah.
That's what you were actually looking at. Now, myself and my wife had been doing IVF for years. So we had been trying for kids for years. And all of a sudden, you just see this absolute wanton waste of life because of a barbaric siege. So we came back out of Gaza. I came back out on the boat, talked to the wife and everything else. And I says, look, I says, we cannot just sit back and do nothing about this. So we continued on doing it. And successfully, we got in 4 more times by boat. And like we brought in aid. There were only small enough boats, but we brought in as much aid as we could carry. And we brought in different diplomats. We brought in, MPs, MEPs, TDs, journalists, lecturers, academics, lawyers, and everything else, so that they could see the situation on the ground themselves.
Just for the person who might be watching this that might be unfamiliar with the geography. So you would have had the Palestinian area, and then after World War II, the kind of Zionist movement in the establishment of Israel, it expands. But Gaza is basically blockaded now on all sides by the current state of Israel. Then you have the Mediterranean, and Israel had enacted a blockade for many years.
There's a maritime blockade, there's an air blockade, and then there's a land blockade.
So they do share a southern border with Egypt.
It's a very small,
very short,
and that's, we'd say, where the Rafah crossing is.
So now, it's just for the person who's there and interested in this, maybe just pull up a map and you might realize, like, it's what you've described. It's a prison.
And for anyone, would say, any of your Irish listeners, to give you an idea of the size of the Gaza Strip, it's actually the same size as the Burn in County Clare. That's the size of the Gaza Strip. It's the same size as the Burn in County Clare, with 2.2 million people.
Yeah, it's insane.
It's one of the most densely populated areas in the world.
Yeah.
And not only that, but there's a 500 meter buffer zone around the edge, all on the Palestinian side. So that reduces it even further. That 500 meters constitutes 25% of the agricultural land in Gaza. And that's not allowed to be entered into. That's the buffer zone.
So in the best of times, it's very, very hard to ilk out a living. In the best of times,
it's virtually impossible to ilk out a living. You have to remember that there is no exports.
Yeah.
Because you can only export through Israel.
Yeah. Who won't allow you to?
They won't allow you to, but on the rare occasions that they do allow you to, and they do for PR purposes, they might allow a very small amount. By the time you've paid your coordination fees with the Israelis, and by the time you've done all the paperwork, whether it be with, say, food products, they're generally gone out, they're rotted away, so they're no good. Or if it's any other type of materials, like with, say, weaving or stuff like that, where they might make them in cafes, small things like that, by the time you pay your coordination fees on that, it's cost prohibitive. So there is no exports.
So is it in all technicality at the moment a state that is entirely dependent on outside entities for its survival?
100%.
Yeah.
It's like, literally, they are not allowed import, they're not allowed export. They're not allowed to do anything. Israel are the world's best at propaganda. They are the masters of deception. They are the absolute masters of deception. Most people, and to all your listeners, and even to yourself, you would all believe that Hamas control Gaza.
Well, no, I wouldn't. I put it. Yeah, I can accept it.
Most people say, "Oh, Hamas control Gaza." For the simple reason is, when you turn on the news, you never heard the word Gaza without it being stated beforehand. Hamas control Gaza, and that's the media pumping this narrative to you continuously that Hamas control Gaza, Hamas control Gaza, and that's all anybody hears. So therefore, they believe that Hamas control Gaza. They don't. We'll take Ireland as an example. If our current government controlled Ireland, okay? Now, if the British government controlled all Irish airspace, controlled all Irish territorial waters, controlled all Irish borders, who can enter, who can exit, controlled how much water the Irish people got and when they got it, how much electricity they got, when and how much they got, controlled the medical supplies that went into the country, how much and what levels was allowed in. And most importantly, collected the taxes and controlled the taxes so that they decide who gets the taxes and when they get them and how much they get. You wouldn't say that the Irish government are in control of the
You'd say
country.
Britain was in control, yeah.
We actually had it. It was called Home Rule.
That's right, yeah.
So,
and that would be like the person picking up the newspaper in London and being told the IRA control Ireland.
same thing.
Same thing.
So in Gaza, this thing of Hamas control Gaza. Hamas won the election in 2005. They ran on an anti-corruption policy because at the time in 2005, Hamas or Fatah were extremely corrupt. It was the corruption level had gone to an endemic level at that stage. So the Hamas said, we'll run for elections and we'll run as an anti-corruption campaign. So they ran as an anti-corruption campaign, and they weren't expecting themselves to win, but they actually won by a landslide because even a lot of the Fatah people were kind of going, look, we can't even afford this anymore. So they voted as well against Hamas or against Fatah for Hamas. Hamas won it. And it was only after Hamas won the election and the Americans and the Israelis didn't like Hamas, it was only then that the Hamas were registered as a terrorist organization in Europe. So then the siege was put in place. And that siege is there until now. Like, I mean, there's children there that were born in 2006. They're 19 years old. They have never had a life outside of siege. They've never been able to travel more than 26 miles. And that's going from the north to the south. That's the most that they're ever able to travel in their entire lives at the age of 19. You have the likelihood of employment is virtually zero because there is no employment. There's nothing getting in, so there's nothing to do. And they are extremely well educated because they've actually nothing to do bar go to school. So they all go to school, they will go to university, they will all train. But it's fruitless because they can be the most highly trained engineers or whatever else, but you've nothing, you've no job prospect at the end of it. And you're trying to eke a living out of nothing. So this is the part that like breaks my heart. I mean, while I was there, I mean, to go back to the story, I literally ran the boats in for up until the last boat I ran was about 2010. And after that, then we moved into Gaza and we were living in Gaza. And while you're there, you can actually see the people. They're the most kind, generous people. They're people that basically have nothing but will give you everything. They're just so happy that somebody is taking notice of them and somebody is trying to help them. So they're so grateful for that. And these people will come and will try their best to work with you. And I mean, it's just heartbreaking to see what's actually happening there now. So,
can I put something to you? And I've often thought of it. Is one of the major problems, as far as I'm concerned, you have a hard right and a hard left. And if one of those ends of the spectrum adopt any kind of issue, a lot of the middle just turn away from it, if you get me. And the Palestinian issue for me is it's a very old issue. You know, you'd have, like, my uncle would have been well informed on it years ago, and there was that'd be when the PLO and all that was going on, you know. But since it's been adopted by what I refer to, like, where do you draw the balance to say you need all the support you can get, but there's some groups, and if they touch something, the middle seems to pull away from it? You'd be aware of it as I'm aware of it. Israel wields enormous power in America. Enormous power in America.
and Europe.
Throughout the world. But the group that have adopted the Palestinian issue in America were pointed at during the Trump second regime. You know, the woke, this, that, and the other. And the minute that they adopted the issue, it turns another spectrum of people away from it. Like, I like conversations like this because I think what I want is the young fella now who's driving his tractor or something like that to say to himself, listen, fair enough, Muslims are that. That doesn't matter. They're people. They're human beings. This was happening here not too long ago. Do you know? This kind of horrible stuff was happening here. Like, you don't have to go too far back when an Irishman wasn't allowed on a horse over £5. Do you know? It was these same stupid rules that were in place.
Well, I mean, this has been going on for, we'd say, a lot longer than most people think. They think it's since 1948. But what a lot of people don't realise is that when the Black and Tans left Ireland, they went to Palestine.
Mm-hmm.
And they were as brutal, if not more brutal, in Palestine.
Yeah.
So this thing of, do you know what I mean? This is a new problem and it's a complex issue. And I mean, I love how you try to muddy the waters with it's a complex issue and there's a lot of things going on that people don't see. No, it's not a complex issue. There's the mass murder of children, men, women, and children in Gaza at the moment.
Yeah.
And they're being just annihilated, and we're standing by and looking at it happening.
Yeah.
That's as simple as it is. There ain't no complicated. We should be standing up and shouting to stop this. We should be onto our governments, and particularly our own government here, and saying it needs to stop. Like, I mean, we voted there again on the Israeli war bonds.
Yeah.
Now,
what happened there? Because that was so watered down in the latter end.
That's the Occupied Territories Bill.
Okay,
that's the Occupied Territories Bill. The Israeli war bonds, the Irish Central Bank, facilitate the sales of Israeli war bonds.
Okay.
We're the go-to spot in Europe to buy Israeli war bonds. Now, our government is saying the war must stop.
And at the same time,
they are selling Israeli war bonds. Now, to put that into context, the war in Israel so far has cost the Israelis approximately 50 billion.
Mm-hmm.
We have facilitated the sale of 5 billion in bonds.
So
that's
10%.
10%. They're saying that there's about 63,000 dead. So that's 6,300 people that we have funded the death of. And they're even Harvard are saying at this stage that the number of missing is around 377,000. That's underneath buildings that they cannot be got at because they've no machinery to dig them out. So if you put the 63,000 and the 377 together, that's 440,000. So 10% of that now is 44,000 people that we have facilitated to kill. That's the simple way of putting it. And to turn around and to say, do you mean that, well, there's EU law and there's this? No. The highest law there is the Geneva Convention.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're facilitating a genocide, which the Irish government have stated themselves that it is a genocide, therefore you are facilitating a genocide.
Yeah, because when this eventually does make its way to The Hague, we're going to have questions to answer. There's no doubt about it.
100%. There'll be a lot of politicians that are, and they don't realise the situation they're putting themselves in, because hearsay doesn't work in a court of law.
No.
Hearsay is not a legal argument. So saying that the legal person told the governor of the Bank of Ireland, they told the Taoiseach, they told the party whip, they told them to vote this way because legally it's okay, does not stand up in court. So a lot of these politicians will have questions to answer.
Yeah, and rightfully so.
Well, I give you straight figures there. I mean, that's straight figures of how many people we are responsible for the death of. And not only that, but we'll have them tomorrow. They will come out and they will say, you have to stop bombing hospitals, you have to stop bombing schools, you have to stop bombing UN shelters. But then they will allow bombs to fly through Irish airspace and to go through Shannon Airport. You cannot turn around and say, you need to stop that. Go on, lads. You cannot do that.
How is there such a disconnect between the political class and the ordinary person? Because it would be my opinion at the moment that vast majority of people that I meet, and it doesn't matter left, right, it doesn't matter, they see it for what it is. And, you know, to be some people who might be more right-leaning, they mightn't particularly like the left, but they don't think they're wrong. They think, yeah, that's going on and it's abhorrent. It shouldn't go on. How can the political class not see that?
They can. But they can see it. But the pressure that they're under is massive.
Yeah.
Ireland is the second biggest trader with Israel. The money that goes through from Ireland to Israel is massive. That's why the whole Occupied Territories Bill had to be watered down, was because of, we'd say, the services. So we have massive dealings with Google and Apple and all these other, and Intel, all these companies. We're doing intellectual properties transfers over and back, and there's huge money involved. And you also have to remember that, like, I mean, I don't know if you ever seen the leaked letter that came from where there was, I think it was 10 or 12 senators in America, basically wrote to the Taoiseach and told them there's no way that this Occupied Territories Bill can go through, and if it goes through, there'll be severe consequences for Ireland, and Ireland will be punished. Now, they'll tell you that, you know, that we don't interfere in foreign governments' policies. That's
America.
Yeah, I know. They'll tell you that, but yes, I know there might be a slight bit of irony there. I know, yeah. But, like, I mean, literally, that's where you're at with it. I mean, they are dictating, and the Israelis are putting as much pressure as well. Like, I mean, Netanyahu's arriving in America today.
I think, though, you've hit on something there as well, that I do think we're going to be economically punished. I really do. I kind of think it's the right side of history, if you get me, is that...
Okay, right. And I agree with you that you can be punished, but tell me, how much blood money do you think should we take?
Oh, no.
Because that's literally what it is.
No.
It's blood money.
No, I'm on side with this.
I know you're on side with it, but any of your listeners, how much blood money do you think should we take?
That's for sure. I mean, we shouldn't.
Okay, do you mind if we kill a few kids if I give you $1 billion? Do you mind if we if we give you $5 billion? How
but
much,
that's literally...
Can we kill 10,000 kids?
Yeah, but that's literally how simple it is. I can't get that across to a lot of people, is Ireland... So we go back now 40s, 50s, right? And okay, fair enough. Ireland was not the advanced economy that it is now, right? But primarily based on agriculture, fisheries, all the rest of it, right? But you get into very dark spaces when you're facilitating finance, when you're facilitating IP, when you're facilitating all of these things, because an awful lot of these industries are very much tied to military, to pharmaceuticals, all the rest of it. You have some very hard decisions to make in the line of, you know, it's that simple. It's how you've just described it as how much death are you willing to facilitate for this money?
Yeah, literally. Well, that's the long and the short of it. But, I mean, people, you must realise that somebody's going to have to stand up to this bully. Yeah. And literally, that's what it is. It's a bully. They're saying they need a ceasefire and the war must stop. There is no war. There's no war. Shooting and bombing people queuing up for food is not war. That's not war. Yeah. That's genocide. Yeah. And that's literally what this is. And every country is standing by writing a strongly worded letter to Joe Duffy is not going to fucking do it. You know what I mean? There needs to be positive action.
Well, let me ask you exactly what anyone who's pro-Israel or that will be screaming at the screen now, which is October 7th.
Right.
So you are obviously better informed than I am. October 7th was attack launched. There was hostages taken. Some terrible things happened. We're probably going to pretend that there wasn't decades of torture before that. Do you know what I mean? That'll be their angle. It just sprung out of no place. In your opinion, October 7th, what happened? And why was there such a security lax on that date? Because that leaves grave questions in my mind. Okay. So it does.
Right. I'll ask all your listeners a question and see if they'll answer what way they're going to answer it. The Palestinians have been under siege since 2006.
Yeah.
Since that, they says, we'll go down the political route and we'll go to the UN and we'll try and resolve it politically. Every time they've tried to resolve it politically, it's been vetoed by the Americans. they says, okay, right, the political route isn't working. We'll try the legal route. So they went to the ICC. The head prosecutor, Khan, in the ICC, him and his family were threatened that they would be executed if they proceeded with the case. And the case basically came to ground to a standstill. So that went nowhere. So the Palestinians says, right, we'll follow the Irish tactic and we'll go for civil disobedience and we'll do boycott. So they went with the boycott option and they started boycotting. It's illegal now in 38 states in America to boycott. They brought in legislation. There's currently 3 or 4 countries in Europe that are looking at bringing in legislation to make it illegal to boycott.
Mm-hmm.
So the Palestinians says, right, we'll do a peaceful march. And they done the right of return march. They walked up to the border in Gaza, all peacefully, and it's been well documented. Not one single shot was fired from the Palestinian side. 223 were shot dead. 1,600 were wounded. So we've done the political, we've done the legal, we've done the civil disobedience, and we've done the peaceful. What option was left to the Palestinians at that stage when they got to October 7th? That's the question I ask. And not only that, but let's look at Hamas for a minute. Because everybody wants to go to Hamas. Let's go to October. Well, let's go to October 1956. The Israelis drove into Han Yunis, where they are today, where the Philadelphia corridor is, and the Nazarene corridor, sorry. They drove into the town centre. They rounded up 253 Palestinians aged between 15 and 50. They brought them to the town square and they executed all 253 in front of everybody. In the crowd that day was an 8-year-old boy by the name of Rantisi. He watched his family being executed in front of him. Rantisi grew up to be known as the Lion of Palestine and one of the founder members of Hamas. Now that was 253. We're over 400,000 people. How many lions and lionesses do you think have been born in the last 2 years from just that one act?
Oh, 100%.
So this thing of, do you mean we have to blame Hamas? Do you realize that in Gaza, the Israelis allow in 2,600 calories per person per day? That's what they allow in. And the UN have stated that's enough to sustain life. So now you're getting enough food to sustain life for the last 20 years, and you're supposed to sit there and take it. The Palestinians, why have the Palestinians not got the right to self-defense? No, everybody says, oh, Israel has the right to self-defense. Israel has the right. Why have the Palestinians not got the right to self-defense? Like, I lived through many of these wars. I was actually in Gaza for the 2012 war, for the 2014 war. I mean, when these buildings are hit, the clouds of dust that comes up, and it's just mass thick concrete dust. It's virtually impossible to fucking breathe. So, apologies for the language.
No, you're fine.
It's impossible to breathe. It hurts your throat. Your lungs are actually heavy. For days afterwards, you are actually coughing up stuff, and it's literally, you can see the dust in what you're coughing up. It's horrific to see what goes on in there. And I mean, the Israelis have been doing this the whole time. I mean, they called it going in to mow the lawn. Like, I mean, you had Operation Cast Lead in 2008. That wiped out close to 10,000. You had Cast Lead, Protective Edge. It's just basically 2010, 2008, 2010, 2014, 2012, 2014. You have all these, and these are literally people, they're being bombed. And Israel are controlling the media, so it's, we're being fired on by rockets. Well, there's been rockets fired at us. These are rockets that are made on kitchen tables. Go to the Balnasama Festival and you'll see bigger rockets.
Yeah.
And literally, this is so this thing of, I mean, we're continuously under attack. One of the most sophisticated armies in the world claiming that they're continuously under attack from fellas that are firing homemade rockets. No, I mean, the narrative is, if you ever notice, one rocket is fired at Israel, huge coverage on the media. whole blocks of buildings been knocked in Gaza. It doesn't even get mentioned. All this, Israel retaliated, but they have the right to self-defense.
Does this boil down ultimately, in your opinion, to profit versus people? There is a huge amount of profit in war, in supplying weapons, all the rest of it. As far as I can see now, you have a population they're in prison. That's all. And I don't want to make a bad terminology. It's like shooting ducks in a barrel. It's horrendous.
Yeah.
This is not a fair fight. You have a group of people they're completely walled in. They have nowhere to go. And you just systematically bomb them.
Yeah.
Do you know, am I wrong in that? Or is that exactly what it is?
That is exactly what it is. Yeah. And you have to remember that, like I said, you were looking at the size of the burn of County Clare for the size of for 2.2 million people. When they put in the buffer zones, they put in then the Philadelphia corridor, the Nazarene corridor, right? So now they're basically half the size of it. So now you're looking at 2.2 million people in an area the size of Ackle Island. Now we complain in Ackle Island on a bank holiday that you cannot move around the place. Can you imagine 2.2 million people stuck there? And literally, that's all it is. It's literally there's rubbish piling up. There's nothing. I mean, buildings are flattened. It's just an absolute catastrophe. It is beyond belief. I mean, I'm talking to people in Gaza all the time, and I mean, they will tell you themselves, and they're sending me videos, and some of the videos you're seeing is just, and I mean, you see, them taking a video, and you can see a guy's arm on the ground, but people are just walking by because at this stage,
yeah,
that's it. I mean, what do you want me to do with it?
Yeah.
So. And that's where you're at. And I mean, they're hunting rats now at this stage, just for food.
Oh, that's the whole desensitization thing. And you can look at it's a coping mechanism for when you're dealing with horror, do you know? Is there a movement in Israel? There has to be a movement in Israel where people realize what's going on. Do you know? There has to be something in Israel. There has to be some sort of people who go, you know, this is exactly what it looks like.
They are, but they're a minority. They are, I mean, and not only that, but they're brutally dealt with.
Yes.
The Israeli authorities brutally deal with them. Now, you talk there as well about the economics. There's a massive gas field off the coast of Gaza.
Yes, I was going to get to that, yeah.
There is a massive gas field. So that's one of the economic drivers in this whole thing. And the second thing is that Israel use Gaza as a not training site but a testing site for their new weaponry. So when they go to weapons fairs and they're selling their weapons, they're one of the few countries that go, this has been field tested. So we know that this is the better one. Yours, yes, you made that, and yes, you can show great demos, but we've field tested ours. We can actually take down a 10-story building with this.
Yeah.
There's the footage, and that's why the Israelis are so big in the arms industry, is because they're one of the few countries that can basically go, well, ours is 100% field tested.
Well, look, you're dealing with a bully. Bullies have to be facilitated.
Why?
No, this is what I'm saying. America is facilitating this bully. Without America facilitating this bully is over very, very quickly, as far as I can see.
Well, Europe is facilitating them just as much. I mean, you have to remember, 80% of Israel's trade is with Europe. We have the Euro-Med Agreement. Part 2 of the Euro-Med Agreement will tell you that they have to abide by international law and that they have to abide by humanitarian law. They don't look at it at all. Why doesn't the European Union suspend it? If you suspended 80% of a country's trade, I can guarantee you they would pop back into line very, very quickly.
But is the logical conclusion not for this? And I'm not saying it is going to happen, but I could see it happening and I can somewhat understand why it had happened. You have the entire Middle East, the Arab nations, who are being put in a complete and utter chokehold by what they perceive as America and Europe facilitating the genocide of their people. Surely to God they're going to fight back. And they're going to fight back in mythologies that they have. They're not going to be able to they're not going to be able to do the head-on war. So they're going to use the mythologies that they have. Do you know, is the logical conclusion for this not terror?
Okay, you look at, would say, Israel's neighbour, Syria.
Yeah.
Okay, the leader of that now is Jelani.
Yeah.
He's former ISIS and former Al-Qaeda.
Yes.
Now, there's not an Arab that won't tell you that ISIS, I know it's supposed to be Islamic State and things like that, but they'll all tell you that the acronym is Israeli Secret Intelligence Services. And literally, that's what Jelani is. Like, I mean, he has facilitated everything that Israel wants since he's got into power. He's going after anybody that is anyway, do you mean, pro-Palestinian in the country. And like, I mean, there's a lot of Palestinian refugees in the country. He does not want them there anymore. I mean,
and he's a man that you would never think Trump would come out and say, "Oh no, he's okay," and he did.
There was a £50 million bounty on his head by the Americans, and now he's okay, and we're going to do deals with him. And then you look at Iraq. Iraq has what, 37? I think it's 37 US bases in it.
Yeah,
they can't really move too hard either. Jordan has no resources and no anything else, so they're kind of caught, and they don't have any oil, so they have no leverage. They have nothing else, so they're not going to do anything. The Houthis in Yemen, yeah, they're sticking it to them. Do you know what I mean? They're trying their best. Lebanon tried their best, and they got like literally
ran over.
So
where's the Turks in this? Because
Erdogan is like the wind.
He is, but I'll tell you,
he changes like the wind. Erdogan will do what is best for Erdogan, and that's the long and the short of it. So if he thinks shouting about Israel will get him more support, yes, I'll shout for Israel. If do you know what I mean, doing a deal with the Americans gets me more money, I'm doing the deal with America.
Do you not think, though, he could perceive himself as the Ottoman Emperor going forward? You have a Middle East that is filled with countries now that are under the thumb, if you get me. Financially, physically, militarily, the whole lot. He has a tremendous army. And I heard an analogy the other day, and I thought, that's actually not fair or wrong. You know, World War II, Germany and the Soviets, they had an understanding until they didn't. I can't help but think, you know, there was big talk about Iran. And I thought, look, I think they'll respond all right. But I thought the oil would have went astronomical, but how they fiddled them books, I don't know.
Yeah, personally, I did as well.
Yeah, but Russia is there. So Iran is Russia's soft underbelly. So I didn't think, you're not going to see America go in here, if you get me. But Turkey, for me, is the
Iran done a lot more damage than is publicly admitted.
Oh, certainly.
I mean, they really highlighted that maybe the Iron Dome and the David slings aren't actually as good as.
No, there was a lot of stuff got in.
There's a huge amount of stuff got in, but there's a huge amount of military targets that were hit.
Yes,
that are completely blacked out,
and military targets that were not common knowledge.
Yes. So, like, I mean, that's why we'd say Israel kind of came to the negotiating table pretty quick on the Iran one, because they could have kept hitting Iran, but Iran could have kept hitting them, and let's just say Iran is a lot bigger area-wise than Israel is. So every time you hit Israel, let's say
it's more concentrated.
So. Yeah, there was, I mean, Iran could have had I think that was a very fast negotiated deal there, because Iran was quietly a little bit more successful than the media was allowed to say.
Yeah, I think so too.
Yeah.
Why do you think the ceasefire? Because I think they had them on the ropes. It looked like the refills of ammunition for keeping the Iron Dome afloat were quickly running out.
Oh yeah.
Why the pullback?
Why the pullback? Because I think it was escalating at such a rapid rate. I think America went in with that big bombing campaign to show their might.
Yeah.
I don't think it was as successful as Trump was making it out to be, that the whole nuclear program was blown out of
No,
existence.
it's not.
No,
They would have relocated everything, sure.
they were still 60 meters out. I mean, from down below. I mean, the bunker busters will go down 60 to 80 meters.
Yeah.
There were still another 60 meters to go.
Yeah.
So no, I think the facility is a lot more intact than.
They like to admit.
Yes, but everybody wants to claim. I mean, everybody is claiming that they're. Oh yeah, like, I mean, Trump was phenomenal. It was great. It was the best thing ever, and we showed them. But I think in reality,
Did they give an assurance about the regime? So we have Iran, the country, we have Iran, the people, and then you have this regime, the Ayatollah.
The
and all
Ayatollah,
that,
yeah.
Did they say, listen, we're backing off the regime. We're not doing the kind of the black, the dark arts trying to get the head toppled over. Is that the assurance that they made? Because frankly, I can't understand why they stopped. Surely they must know. Like we've seen,
there was an awful lot of agents, let's say, picked up in Iran.
I'd imagine so.
There was an awful lot picked up in Iran afterwards. Yeah, there was a lot of agents picked up. So I think their network might have been the West network might have been slightly weakened, I think, on that particular one. I think it was.
Well, I seen a video from Israel, and it's from someone, we'll say an anonymous source. It's not on my phone. It was a friend of mine who would have had business and all that over there. They were getting pummeled. You've seen 4, we'll say 3 fairly conventional looking ones, and then one that I can only describe as hypersonic. You didn't see it, and bang, that's it. And Iron Dome, like your one is chirping away there is it Hebrew or that? And she says, it's a sieve. I says to your man, what she say? He says, it's a sieve. So all of a sudden you had a populace coming under the realization, these are getting through.
Yeah, because the thing is that if you're told, and it's like, I mean, this is going back to Goebbels, who said, repeat and lie often enough until it becomes the truth.
Yes. Yeah.
And literally, so this is what the Israelis have been told.
Yeah.
We have the Iron Dome. We have David slings. We have the arrows. We have everything. We're untouchable. We're God's chosen people. We cannot be touched. Da 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 da. And you're told that every day of your life, you believe it, until all of a sudden somebody starts firing rockets at you, and you're kind of going, right,
Yeah.
maybe not.
Because it's an interesting thing to look into, is the establishment of it first. After the World War II situation, some of the propaganda, they actually recruited former German propaganda specialists at the establishment of it, because they seen this is effective.
But see, it was you have to remember that it was a new tool at the time. I mean, television and wireless was a new tool at that time. People were only starting to get radios and televisions. So all of a sudden, this was the new newspaper. But this was on the spot news. So this was, and that's why television and radio became so powerful. And the authorities seen the power of this. With the invention of the internet, all of a sudden the grip isn't there as much, because people are now no longer maybe sitting watching, religiously, watch the Angelus, watch the 9 o'clock or 6 o'clock news. Do you know what I mean? And then everything else. I mean, it's gone now from that, where people are now just getting a lot of their news off the internet. So, like, I mean, people would listen to broadcasts like this, rather than, do you know what I mean, turning into Radio 1 or T1.
Yeah.
So this is the big fear at the moment of we'd say, them losing the grip on the media. And people are now starting to see that the mask is slipping, because up to this point, it was, we are the victims. And Israel have always claimed that they are the victims. We're the victim. We're under attack. We're the Lebanese want to kill us, the Syrians want to kill us, the Jordanians want to kill us, the Egyptians and the Palestinians, everybody wants to kill us.
Yeah.
But it always seems to be that the Israelis are the ones that stone the fighting.
Yeah.
So claiming the victim is, for me, sometimes it's a bit rich from them.
You said it there, the mask has slipped. And I think that's a powerful thing, because for me, skepticism about the Jewish people over the years has primarily been something people pointed at and says, Nazi, right wing, the whole lot. I think at the moment you have a hell of a lot of people who are, we'll say, of a left-leaning persuasion, who have opened their eyes and realised, hold on a second, there's an awful lot to this. So even something as simple as media, you know, the vast majority of American and an awful lot of European media, independent media, is Israeli owned, Israeli backed, or a person of the Jewish persuasion. They have been able to construct a narrative over the years that, you know, it seems to me that it's coming to a very abrupt end.
I'd have to correct you, as I don't think it's Judaism. I think it's Zionism.
Oh, so yeah.
No,
yeah,
and the reason I say that is because Judaism is a religion.
yes, yeah,
Zionism is a political ideology.
yes, yeah.
And that's what this is. This is a political ideology to get their message through, and to get their proposals and their what they want to do, get them through. It has nothing got to do with religion. This, I mean, sorry, I think, as far as I know now, I can be wrong now, but in the Torah, in the Bible, and in the Quran, as far as I'm aware, God only ever wrote one thing. It was man that wrote everything else. And the only thing that God wrote was the Ten Commandments. So let's look at them, if you want, for what with the Israelis. Thou shalt not kill. I think you might have one or two there. Thou shalt not steal. Thou shalt not covet thy neighbour's goods. I think we're kind of racking up the old Ten Commandments here fairly rapid. So don't be, I mean, the thing of religion, that's used as a scapegoat in every conflict. Like, I mean, even in our own country here, it was Catholic versus Protestant. It wasn't, where in reality it was Republican versus Unionist.
Yes, yeah. But the only thing that I will say is, you know, if you go into Christianity, if you go into Islam, you have two texts that people believe is foundational. You have the Bible, Old Testament and New Testament, and that comes from your Judaic background, the Old Testament or that. But you do have multiple books with Judaism that do describe them as... It's a dangerous precedent to set. It's a dangerous precedent to say categorically, you're it. You're going to be here after the end. Everyone else is in your service.
Yeah,
that's a dangerous precedent to set.
I'm a bit dubious anyway on the whole story now that there's the promised land. I have a little bit of
I'd say that's a bit more northerly. So it is.
No, well, it's not that. Not even that. Okay, right. Like, I mean, Moses was in his 20s, brought these people that had never seen the sea before, and he brought them to the sea, and the sea disappeared. Now, an educated person nowadays would say the tide went out. He walked across the sandbank. There was people following him a few hours behind, and the sea came in and swallowed them up. So the tide came in.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know what I mean? He went up the mountain, he burned a bit of bush. Do you know what I mean? He came down, and after burning the bit of bush, he comes down and he kind of goes, dudes, I just had a talk with God. He told me you have to follow me for the next 40 years. He gets to the goal. He gets to the Jordan Valley 40 years later. Now he's double the life expectancy of a would say normal human being at that stage, because the average life expectancy 30 or 3,000 years ago would have been about 35. Mm-hmm. He gets to the Jordan Valley. He stands in the valley. He can look down as far as Eilat, over as far as Gaza, up as far as Haifa, over the Golan Heights and down into the Shubba Farms. Never gone to Specsavers, and he can say there was nobody there. And this is our land. And then it turns out that it's right next door to Egypt at the beginning anyway.
Yeah, no, there's, as I says...
I'm a bit dubious of that story myself now.
I'm dubious of the whole lot of them, but what's it called? But there is a lot to be said about when you go to the Zionism and the political... you're going back to the 1800s, you know,
Yeah,
as
1870s, 1880s.
yeah. So, with regards to that, it's established a long time. There are people who intend to see it through. What my point with it is, I think an awful lot of people have opened their eyes to, you know, Israel is a Zionist state. Do you know,
100%.
from its establishment, and even you go to the men who drew out the borders with rulers in the Middle East, they left room for this to eventually happen. Do you know, it's a
But
terrible,
it was the most
terrible
ridiculous
thing.
carve up of land.
That's brutal.
Like, I mean, there's a bit here, there's a bit there, there's a bit there, there's a bit there, and there's a bit there. Like, I mean, literally, it was the most bizarre. Like, I mean, if you're going to divide up a country, draw a line across the middle, say north and south, and that's it.
Yeah.
They decided there was a bit over here, a bit up there, a bit down there, a bit over here.
Yeah.
And they handed away 55% of Palestinian land at the very beginning. And the Israelis have been taken every day since. They've been taken.
Tell people-
You're now down to less than 9%.
But tell people about that, because I think an awful lot of people don't understand this. Like, you will see scenes where Zionist Jews, whatever you want to call them, are literally coming up with guns and that and removing farmers from places and saying, oh, this is mine now. Do you know? This is happening.
There's a very famous clip online, and I'd say many have seen it, and it's this guy from Brooklyn, and he goes into this house, he takes over the house, he throws the Palestinian family out, and they're shouting at him, just kind of, this is our house. And he just turns around to them in English. You can hear him fully, and he just goes, if I don't steal this house, somebody else will. And that's the mentality they have. Like, I mean, they are fully entitled. I can go to, maybe not me, but most other people could go up to the Israeli embassy tomorrow, say, I want to revert, or I want to convert to Judaism, and I want to move to Israel. The Israelis will facilitate everything for you. They will facilitate your flights, they will give you money, they will do everything for you, and you can go into the West Bank and find your piece of land, say, that's the piece of land I want, and the army will get rid of whoever owns the land. That's the way it works at the moment.
It's absolutely insane.
So, it's what's happening there, and this has been happening for such a long time, but it's the media have been downplaying it, hiding it, whatever you want to say. I mean, they've been doing everything with it to make sure that the public aren't educated on it. And it has been successful so far, but this has gone so barbaric is the only reason that we're talking about this today, because it's gone beyond barbaric at this stage, what's happening in Gaza.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, when you have aid workers, and I've worked in a lot of different places, I've never in my life seen aid workers distributing aid with M16 strapped to their backs. If you're an aid worker, you don't need an M16 strapped to your back.
Yeah.
And it was so bad that even the BBC aired it, where you could actually hear these guards, these contractors, these American contractors that's in distributing the food, shooting at the Palestinians, and one of them shouting, I think I got one. Yeah, you got one. No, I'm sorry, but that's not aid distribution. That's a mousetrap. You're telling the Palestinians there's food here, come up and try and get it. And when you try and get it, we'll shoot you. That's a mousetrap.
Jesus Christ.
I mean, what's happening there is just, there's so many stories at this stage that you just don't even know where to go with it. There is that many stories of just sheer barbarity. Like, a doctor went to work one day, and while she's at work, nearly all her family arrive in body bags. She lost 9 of her children in one go. The husband was in intensive care. The last child was in intensive care. The husband died in intensive care. Now, intensive care in Gaza is not what you think intensive care is here. Like, they literally have nothing left at this stage. The Israelis are refusing to allow in painkillers, even just ordinary painkillers, let alone anything anesthetic. You have talking to some of the Palestinians, they will tell you themselves that the ones that are shot dead while going up getting the food are the lucky ones. They're called the aid seekers. They're called the aid seekers, the new term on everything. So they're aid seekers. They're the lucky ones. Because the other ones, what they're doing is they're targeting them in the legs with butterfly rounds. And a butterfly round just opens up and it just basically just absolutely destroys the bone, shatters the bone into so many pieces that it cannot be fixed. So you're only left with one option, and that's amputation. So now you have to go through an amputation without any anesthetic. Now you try and amputate without an anesthetic. That is horrific. There was one doctor, he had to do an amputation on his 4-year-old child, his own 4-year-old child. The child died through shock while getting the amputation done. And now you can imagine what that doctor is going to go through for the rest of his life. For the rest of his life, it'll be maybe if I cut an inch higher, maybe if I cut an inch lower, maybe if I could have done this. I could have maybe tried to save the leg. He killed his own child, basically. Well, he didn't kill it. He tried to save his own child. It was the Israelis that killed it. But he, for the rest of his life, will have to live with that.
What do the people on the ground think of the idea of relocation? Are they totally abhorrent to it, or is there some people who are like, just get me out of this hellhole? They're just totally against it.
No, they don't want to move. They don't want to move. I mean, they were told in 1948, you can go, leave, you can come back. They weren't allowed back. They were told in 1968, or 1967, you can leave, don't come back. Or you can leave and you can come back. After it was over, no, you're not allowed to come back. And it's the same continuously. You're not allowed to come back. Like the Palestinians, one of the Palestinians' main fight is the right to return. So all they want to do is be able to return to their own land. That's why the key is the symbol of Palestine. The key, the reason one of the keys was one of the symbols is a key, and it's the key of the front door of the houses that they left. A lot of the people still have the front door key of the houses that they left from 1948. It's passed down from generation to generation. And it's so telling them now that you can go somewhere else. Like, go where? Go to the Sinai desert, is it? So move into the desert. 2-point-something million people. Move into the desert and you can live there. It's not even your own country. So now I'm a refugee in another country. You have, where else can you go? Jordan. Jordan doesn't want anymore for the simple reason is they are close to a situation where they have as many Palestinians as they have their own citizens, and it would become a situation where they would be outnumbered in their own country. Lebanon is packed. Lebanon's absolutely wedged because you have the amount of Syrian refugees in there, you have all the Palestinian refugees, and you have all the Lebanese in there as well. So they cannot take anymore. Syria is a basket case, and Giuliani definitely doesn't want them. So where do these people go? I mean, you can say, oh, well, we'll find a plot of land for them. If I arrive to you, I says, here, I tell you what, I'm taking your farm. I'll find you a plot of land somewhere and you can fuck off onto it. I don't think now you'd be moving too quickly. No. And I'll promise you that it won't be good land. I can promise you it'll be the worst scrub land I can find.
Yeah. To hell or to Connacht is right.
This is Connacht would be a paradise compared to the land that they're going to get.
Yeah, they're in desert and stone and the whole lot.
That's it. So I mean, would you move? And it is your own. It's your home.
How do you see this playing out? Because I can't help but think this ends up in a mass movement of people, willingly or unwillingly. And I don't like the idea of it, but it's very hard to see past that idea. Do you know? Do you know? The Israelis aren't going to stop, are they?
The only way the Israelis...
Unless the entire world absolutely calls it out for what it is, ostracizes them, prevents them from trading, the whole lot.
It doesn't even need to be the whole world. One country.
Yeah.
Just one country to stand up. One European country to stand up and say, no, I'm sorry, that's it. It's over. And basically send in military ships with aid. So we're delivering it ourselves, we're delivering it on. And if you want to start attacking us, yes, but there will be consequences. Because until somebody stands up to a bully, the bully thinks he's unbeatable. Now, Israel would be very isolated if Europe turned on. If Europe turned on Israel, Israel would be an extremely isolated spot. Because all of a sudden now, let's just say, your neighbouring countries will be kind of going, oh, okay, right, now we'll stand up. Because at the moment, they believe that they're not strong enough to stand up. But if Europe turned against Israel, then all of a sudden, because Israel has done so much to so many different countries. I mean, they've done targeted assassinations in Qatar, where they took out Ishmael and Nia. It was not Ishmael, was it? It was the other Hamas leader. But they have done so many different operations in so many other people's countries that it is, do you know what I mean? The countries will say eventually, yeah, okay, right, we'll join in. But all you need is one country. I think one country, if one country stood up and says, that's it, we're not doing this anymore, we're not going to stand by and allow this to happen, then I think you would find, America would try to put massive pressure on them. But you would need to be able to take that pressure and say no. And I think that needs to be done at this stage.
What country do you think is likely? Because we spoke, and then when it mattered, they just pulled back. They made their choice. They went with the money.
Oh, yeah, I know. Okay, right. But Gaza is, Spain, Italy, France, Greece, all these countries are Palestinian neighbours in the Mediterranean. That's their neighbours. They're the Mediterranean neighbours. They should be some of the countries at the front of this, saying, okay, right, this is enough. We have to stop this. Just in the name of humanity. And I think the country that actually does stand up first will have the applause of the world. They will actually have the applause of the world because, like you said near the beginning, the people, both left, right, centre, can see that this is wrong. But the politicians are the ones that are cowering away. So I think that, yes, if one country does it, they will have the applause of the world. Oh, the other countries will be, do you know what I mean? And waiting to see. The typical politicians sit on the fence until we see what happens, and then we'll jump whichever side.
You see, what, in my opinion, has occurred is over the space of 6 to 7 decades, one country, one people with a single ideology have made political systems, business systems, financial systems entirely beholden to their whims.
Yeah.
And you see, this is where, as I said, what's fundamentally lacking in this is courage. So you take someone like me, and there'll be plenty of people who'll be a fan of me, and then they'd hear, oh, he's in favour of Palestine. Oh, Jesus Christ, he's fucked now. He's a fucking lefty and all the rest of it. I don't care, because the point about it is you have to stand up for something in that time. Is there courage in the Western world to stand up for humanity, as you've said? Because as far as I can see, the Western world has turned a blind eye to an awful lot of things. The same with the Uyghurs in China. You know, it's the same thing. We know what's going on, but a lot of trade going on, and sure, nobody's perfect.
Yeah,
and it's ridiculous.
Yeah.
Like,
and the thing is, for me, I mean, if you criticize, what's wrong now, particularly in politics, is if you criticize anybody, they seem to think that you're against them.
yes, yeah.
You're automatically, you're against me, you're against me. No, when you were growing up, if your mother told you, no, you're not doing that, that's wrong, stop doing that, and don't ever do that again, you would say, she was doing it out of love. But if you said to a politician now, no, don't do that, that's wrong. Oh, you're a lefty, or you're a righty, or this, you're that. No, you're not. You're just basically saying what is happening is wrong. I agree with some of your policies. I don't agree with all of your policies. Do you know what I mean? But as far as they're concerned, you're against everything.
I think a lot of it too is you pointed to it very well, which is the information. There's an awful lot of people and they're not informed. They think what's going on is that there was an attack, one country is defending itself, and there's rockets flying over at them all the time, and they're not informed. Do you know? Because as I said, these things goes back over years. On that note, and I want to we'll just allude to it, and we'll move on to the second part then after the toilet break or that. But you ended up in Greece at the very forefront of the immigration crisis when the Syrian war was on, and we'll be moving on to that in the second part. Absolutely. This is the kind of information everyone should be getting. This is what's actually happening on the ground when people migrate from one place to another. This is the introduction to Europe. This is the good parts, the bad parts, the parts that could be improved, the parts that needs to be cut out. We'll get to all of that. So head to the Patreon, and thanks to everyone on Patreon who supports us to keep the lights on in the studio and discuss. Derek, thank you so much for being with us, and we'll continue on to the second hour, so we will then. Thanks as well, and I have to say it, you've dedicated a life to humanity, and fair play to you. Well done. Well done.
But realistically, okay, the reason I'm there, I've done it because I've seen it.
Yeah.
If you see a child on the street, he's been hit by a car, whatever it is, you don't run up and go, "What nationality are you? Do you know what I mean? Where are you from? What religion are you?" You don't do that. You just go and you help the child.
Yeah.
And that's it. And anybody would do it.
Yeah.
And I think more people should, do you know what I mean, just go out and say, okay, look, I'm going to help.
Yeah.
Not just kind of, like, I mean, the Irish are very good high stool protesters. We'll go and we'll sit on the high stool and say that's wrong, but go out and protest, no. Like, we're on the bridge every Friday. We've been on the bridge every Friday for the last, I'd say, 18 months. And the numbers haven't increased hugely. They're increasing slowly lately. But all it is it's just a group of concerned citizens. We're not politically affiliated with anybody or anything. All we do is we just go there and we're calling for an end to the genocide. Now, that's not a big ask to ask for an end to a genocide.
Yeah. This is in Ballina.
In Ballina, every Friday between 5 and 6, we stand there on the bridge. You know, we ask people to, you know, honk their horns as they're going by, you know, just to show support. But if anybody wants to come and just join us, there's bridgewills actually all over the country. In all 32 counties, there's bridgewills. And you can join them any day. And all it is just to say, I'm opposed to genocide. I want the genocide to stop. There's no political allegiances to anything with the bridgewills. That's all they're there for. And people should go out and say, look, yes, I'll stand there for 1 hour. And people say, well, what difference does it make? We started about 18 months ago, and we were the only bridgewill in Mayo. Today, there's one in Ballina, Foxford, Balmullet, Claremaris, Westport, Achill, Ballyhaunis, and I'm trying to think there's another one as well, but I can't think of it at the moment. But there's all of a sudden there's all these bridgewills have started every weekend, you know, between 5 and 6 generally on a Friday, or on a Saturday between 5 and 6. And
they grow organically.
Yeah.
and that's all. That's 100%.
It's not political at all.
There's no political. Nobody. You don't even talk about politics on it. Like, literally, like this. I do the Foxford one and I do the Ballina one, and generally on the Foxford one, it'll either be Mayo Gaelic or Galway. Now, there's not much to talk about in Mayo Gaelic at the moment, but so the other two boys are from Galway. So this is after last weekend. I don't think there's too much to talk about in the Galway one either.
You'll have to move on to the weather fairly shortly. There's not much to talk about up here at that either.
Yeah. So, but like, literally, it's not. I mean, it's not political, and I'd encourage anybody, no matter where you are in the country, to go out and just join the bridgewills. I mean, just stand there and show your solidarity. Even, I mean, you have to remember that these pictures are actually being seen by people in Gaza, so that they know that there's somebody standing with them.
Well,
that they're not forgotten, because as far as they're concerned, they're forgotten. They are absolutely forgotten about. And if you're sitting there, you're 2 years later, you're still been bombed, you're still been starved, you would assume you've been forgotten about. But when the siege, I mean, there's pictures coming in from all over Ireland. I mean, the Palestinians love the Irish for the simple reason is the support that they get here is phenomenal.
Well, when we had the Airbnb going here, there was a Palestinian gentleman visited, and he had gone all over Ireland, and he had been up in Derry, and he had postcards of Bobby Sands, and he was down here, and I brought him to Killarney Sheep Mart because they had been farmers years ago until it was taken off them, and he was taking photos of this mart, and we went for a bite to eat together, and yeah, really, really nice person, and left his details and the whole lot, and I was able to contact him a couple of times, and then he says he was going back, and nothing since, and I can only presume. So,
I mean,
what's it called? We'll move on to the next hour. Thanks for being with all of us, and yeah, Derek.